done for. Everyone get out.
Greetings sailors, welcome back to World of Warships, and we actually have a viewer replay for you today. This is Crazy5982 and he is in the New York. Now I've put up the loading screen just so you can get an idea of the matchmaking, and it's pretty good as you can see. Very top tier indeed. The New York I actually did play a little bit on the closed beta test server, but not that much. I only really got to the New York by the time it was wrapping up, so I don't really have that much experience with it. And I've played the Arkansas beta a bit more than really any of the other American battleships, but even so, I don't play it that much. And it's just the speed of them that are not fun for me. The low-tier British battleships are likely to be the same. But that alone, coupled with the fact that they also have the usual battleship traits of long reloads and very long turret traverses, I think it's 60 seconds for 180 degrees in the case of the New York, means that American battleships are definitely not a priority for me. Although I have started once again down the line of the Japanese, just because they're faster, basically. And although both tier 3s are absolutely horrible, once you get to the tier 4 on the Japanese line, you get a little bit more speed to work with, in fact a lot more speed to work with, and that makes it just generally more pleasant, because with the map sizes in this game, speed matters. So Crazy here is, despite his speed, going to have a pretty good game, as you'll see. And he's actually got a couple of allies around him, so although there are carriers on each team, this is a 4.05 replay, so this is just before the recent patch, before the fixed to carrier matchmaking, although it doesn't seem to be 100% fixed, but I think it's better. So, although the fact that we've got 2 and they've got 1 seems to favour this team, it doesn't necessarily. It just depends on the exact tiers of those carriers. So he's not really had any luck so far. I mean, he's firing at 10 kilometres range, which is not that far. I think it's, 15 point something kilometres maximum range on the New York, which is not terrible, but it's definitely not the best. I mean, the Congo gets an extra 5 on top of that, yeah, still these are pretty reasonable ranges to be fighting at, regardless of what kind of battleship you're in. And he's had a couple of hits, but nothing spectacular so far, and that's really I mean, you can be aiming as best as you can, and it's all in the hands of RNGs at that point. Although there are, for some battleships anyway, equipment modules that you can put on which increase the accuracy of your guns. Suddenly, RNG turns in his favour. Yeah, that was a triple citadel and a devastating strike, so that right there is why people do still play battleships, regardless of the fact that they're slow and the turrets turn horribly slowly and the rate of fire is terrible. It's shots like those. And I feel like if you can stand the inconsistency of the experience of battleship play, which is the major off-putting thing to me, then a well-played battleship absolutely is an asset to the team and can do really good things for a team. But you have to just be able to stand the pace and to stand the inconsistency, basically. Although they have actually given one particular buff to the battleship class with the recent patch, and that is that up to a range of 3 kilometres, your shells are now more accurate. There's a kind of a 2-step dispersion statistic going on now. But the thing is, 3 kilometres is still pretty close range. That's well within the range of the secondaries of most, if not all, battleships. So it's a buff, but I'm not sure it's a massive buff. If it was out to the range of the secondaries, which would make more sense to me, then I don't know. I think that would have been better. Anyway, Crazy is doing a thing here. Now, I am in two minds about this. I've seen people say you should always try and angle your battleship, but with, for instance, my Ogi, which is the tier 4 Japanese, and there we go, nice citadel, the fact is that you get 2 of your turrets on the rear and only 1 turret on the front. So if you're using your bow armor, or not really even your bow armor, if you're using your angling to make yourself A, a smaller target, and B, increase the chances of getting dings off your hull, well, that's fine in terms of survivability, but then I've only got 1 turret to work with. And it's not so bad with the New York. You've got 2 turrets, but that's still the rear 3 turrets completely out of it. So I think it's just one of these things where it's like there's a time and a place to try and angle your armor, and then there's a time and a place to... look at that. Boom, boom, boom. And then there's a time and a place to give people your broadside in order to be able to fully use your own firepower. And I suspect that's just one of these things where it's judgment through experience as to knowing what to do and when. Because as you'll see, although in this particular case Crazy is basically trying to get the maximum use of his firepower, he's also facing 2 enemy battleships, and he's really not taken a lot of damage up till now, but that's going to change rather rapidly. So this right here is a demonstration of why giving people your broadside can be very risky. Now, he's done a bunch of damage in return. That's another 2 citadels. He's racking them up at a rate of knots here. But he lost, what, 40% of his own health? So very probably he took a citadel hit in return. So that's the risk that you run. I mean, you get your firepower, but you also open yourself up to a lot more damage. And with something like the Tirpitz, it's a lot more possible to kind of weave an S-shaped course, and you wiggle your ship so that you are, when you're reloading, you are more or less cutting a straight course to the enemy, and then you can angle it such, once you're ready to fire your rear turrets, you can angle it such so that the back of your ship is at a sufficient angle that you can then get your turrets on the enemy, at which point, after you've fired, you can straighten up again. And the Tirpitz's stats in terms of its maneuverability, in terms of its turret turn rate, in terms of its reload speed, all make that very possible. But for something like this, for I think most of the American battleships, and probably some of the Japanese battleships as well, that's a lot tougher to do. So, yeah, I think it's just always going to be that trade-off of maximum risk for maximum reward, or do you play it safe and maybe try and increase your survivability, but at the same time reduce your own fighting effectiveness. So like I said, it's probably just one of these things where it's a judgment call with time. So no more citadels, but that guy was super low health anyway. However, in the meantime, Crazy has also lost most of his own health. So if he gets, like, focused at this point, well, that's bad news. The remaining enemies are all also on the other side, and that means getting his turrets around. But he's actually going to be a bit more cautious from this point forward, because this team's winning on points. And sometimes, as in that Tirpitz replay video I put up, discretion is the better part of valor, because in the domination map mode, which initially I didn't like very much, and it's still sometimes a little bit frustrating when there's loads of time on the clock but you've won by points, and it's like, well, okay, I could have shot a bunch more stuff, but whatever, we won. But the number of draws in this game on the regular map modes can be a bit frustrating sometimes, and sometimes it's just one player throwing the entire game, which happened to me the other day. We had just a standard, another citadel, just a standard battle, and it was, it could have been so much better. We could have won. We fought really hard. We were beating the enemy. We had 1 cruiser in the cap. We were a minute and a half from the end, and the cruiser drove out the cap. And that basically cost us the win and made it a draw, because the remaining 2 enemy ships were too far away to then chase down and kill in the remaining minute and a half. So that was one case where it was like, okay, this one person just totally screwed us. And if it had been a domination mode, well, it wouldn't have mattered, because if we'd been winning, we'd have been winning on points anyway. Even if the time runs out in the battle, the team with the more points wins. And that initially confused me as well, but that is actually how it works. So 900 points versus 200. I think they've got this one comfortably in the bag. I mean, Crazy's gotten himself a high caliber and 2 devastating strikes. Possibly even devastating strikes. One of the two. Take your pick. And with that final citadel, he gets himself a Confederate medal as well. So at this point, the next ship that dies is going to give them the win, pretty much. And even if no ships die, they're going to win very shortly anyway. And by staying alive, he's denied the enemy team an extra chance to fight, because that's kept his points in the game. And although it would have been nice maybe to hunt down and kill the remaining ships, a win's a win, and sometimes that's what you want. And I actually think the whole thing of being frustrated by people capping as compared to killing the whole enemy team, it's much less of a thing in World of Warships. World of Warships, yes. I'm doing so well because of the nature of the game, the pace of the game, and the size of the maps in particular. So no score screens, unfortunately. Crazy did send me some results. I mean, we did get to see some of it. 11 citadels, 4 ships destroyed, 29 hits, and that's a really good actual ratio of citadels to hits there. 11 citadels to 29 hits. And he says he got 2150 base XP and 146,000 AP damage. We're just going to have to take his word on that, but honestly, the number of citadels he got, I can believe that. That sounds about right. So, that leaves me on to say, if you're going to send me World of Warships replay, please send me score screens. It's so much nicer to be able to show them. Otherwise, it's just the usual address, but make sure that you indicate clearly it's a World of Warships replay, because I've been pulling those out separately. They're in a separate pile, as it were. So, otherwise, it's just, as normal, the usual address, and say something about the match as well, as with my World of Tanks, wow, replays. I should just wrap this up while I still can. I'll just, you know, make it out alive, or at least with some of my dignity intact. Oh, I think it's too late for that, though. So, if you enjoyed this video, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and, as always, stay tuned for more.